Hey, it's Michelle Beadle. That's right, the Michelle Beadle. You're welcome. You love talking about sports. I love talking about sports. You know the only thing cooler than talking about sports? Sports! And right now, all your favorite sports are on Sirius XM. I'm talking every NFL game, every game from the NBA, NHL, MLB, every NASCAR race, golf major conference college sports, and all the top games in the WNBA. If it gets your heart pumping, it's on Sirius XM. To start your free trial of Sirius XM today, visit SiriusXM.com/believe.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Last year, they went and took it.
He struck him out looking.
This year,
the Texas Rangers win the World Series.
They're here to run it back.
It's over.
This is Believe in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
The Stove League is hot. Welcome into this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. Be sure if you like what you're listening to, you subscribe, you rate 5 stars, you tell your friends about where they can get their bite-sized Texas Rangers information. You can do that right here with Believe in Texas Rangers. And teasing the hot stove is one thing. First of all, I just want to apologize for the absence that has occurred for the last couple of weeks now. I thought I had a plan set in place. I thought everything was going to go fine. Everything was going to be put back together like Humpty Dumpty after he fell off the wall. And then I just ran into some other personal issues. Everything's resolved now. Some of it health related, some of it just time consumption with my other job. So happy to be back. No video for this one. I'm working on a new setup. Maybe you can tell just by listening that I'm working on a new situation. Just relocating where the setup is within the current place that I'm living. I'm not like moving anywhere. But my roommate and I, we wanted to remodel one of the rooms in our house, and we did. And now we have an office, and that's where everything is set up. So next chance that I get to do things on video, you'll see the different setup. It's nice, but it's also pretty boring in here. I'm also working on the soundproofing aspect because I realize I'm getting a decent amount of echo, and I'm trying to figure out how to cease that. So apologies for the audio quality. If that's something that bothers you, apologies there. So we have to start with the news that just came down. I'm recording this Tuesday or Monday morning. Gosh, I've already lost track of the days. Monday morning, the trade deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central is the trade deadline on Tuesday. But the Rangers have already made 2 moves as you're listening to this right now. So any moves that have come down after this, I apologize. What just happened this morning? The Rangers have made a sell move. They have traded Michael Lorenzen, who they acquired this offseason, late in the offseason, who they brought in for some extra pitching help. They have sent him to the Kansas City Royals in exchange for left-handed pitcher Walter Pennington. Pennington is currently with AAA Omaha, and the Rangers have announced that he's going to be assigned to AAA Round Rock. So nothing significant to come as far as a roster adjustment with that, trading a major leaguer for a minor leaguer, keeping him in the minor leagues. That frees up a current 26-man roster spot for someone else who we'll touch on in just a moment. But Walter Pennington, so far this season, really good. 6-3 record, a 2.26 ERA, and 37 games pitched. He started twice, and he has a couple of saves, but the gist would be is that he's a reliever, and he's been working as a reliever since being a member of the Royals, and he's only spent time with the Royals. He comes from the Colorado School of Mines. Shout out to all my Colorado homies. But yeah, Walter Pennington, left-hander and a reliever, and maybe somebody that the Rangers could utilize later in the final month of the season when the rosters expand by just a couple more. I'm not going to guarantee that or anything, but it is interesting to know that they went after some more relief depth and traded from their starting depth, even with what happened to John Gray the other day when he had to leave the game early against the Blue Jays. They must be confident enough that with Scherzer back, Dane Dunning is back, and then with Jacob deGrom and Tyler Mahle waiting in the wings, as well as Cody Bradford, who's been out for several months at this point, they must feel confident that their starting pitching depth is not going to take a massive hit as a result of trading away Michael Lorenzen. So, in that regard, full support of this move. And I don't know that it necessarily signals one thing or the other, because they did make a bit of a buy yesterday, which we'll touch on in just a sec. But it is interesting. This is how they're approaching it, even with the news that John Gray could be back on the shelf before we know it, right? At the same time, Lorenzen has pitched well enough to up the value, and if it means the Rangers kind of restock in an area of need and left-handed pitching depth, then so be it, because with all due respect to Jacob Latz, it's kind of been just him as lefty reliever out of the bullpen. I know they have others, but most of the left-handed reliever work has come from Jacob Latz. It's very right-handed heavy in the Rangers bullpen. So if that means addressing an area of need, then so be it. I'm all for it. The other trade that I keep teasing, and now I'm actually going to get to, Carson Kelly, the catcher who was with the Detroit Tigers, he comes to the Rangers yesterday in exchange for minor league catcher Liam Hendriks and right-handed pitcher Tyler Owens, both of them minor leaguers. Both of them, I imagine, going to Detroit to, free up opportunities. In particular, I was reading about a catcher that the Tigers really like that they want to employ, and with Carson Kelly on the roster, this frees up a spot for him. Now, what does this mean for the Rangers? Because you could justifiably argue that this feels like a buy sort of move. This is an obvious Andrew Knizner replacement. Just looking at it before the team has actually announced any corresponding roster move to go with it. I don't know that this is a buy. And with respect to Carson Kelly, because the offense has not been good it's not been like blow you away kind of offense this year. It's also not been something that's going to overtake Jonah Heim's offense down the stretch, right? Now, where Carson Kelly does succeed and succeeds very well is in his defense. And if you're looking for a reason to up from Andrew Knizner, Carson Kelly's fielding run value, he's in the 82nd percentile. His blocks above average is in the 90th percentile. Caught stealing above average is in the 89th percentile. 66th percentile for framing and 29th percentile for pops. So he's a little slow in that department. But man, if you're looking for an upgrade at defense when it comes to your catcher spot, it's Carson Kelly, just based off of the way he's been playing this year. I know the hitting numbers aren't that amazing this year. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries in his past couple of seasons. That's why the Diamondbacks moved on from him last season after they got an upgraded catcher themselves. If nothing else, Carson Kelly is going to provide depth at the catching spot. He's going to be an upgrade of Andrew Knizner, at least defensively. And maybe the offense will be there, maybe it won't. I mean, when he makes contact, he can hit the ball very hard. That's something that gives you a lot of hope or confidence going into this stretch run. But I look at it this way. They've added a catcher, and they've subtracted one of their starting pitchers. I have a feeling that the Rangers think that they're still in this. And I'm not going to argue one way or the other. I'm just going to present what my feelings are and the statistics that would support them. But the Rangers made an addition and they made a subtraction. And I think both of them are significant in their own right. One is a little more significant than the other, however, given that one of the pieces that they sold off was somebody that they added this offseason because they knew they were going to need the depth in their rotation because they knew a good chunk of their starters were going to be on the shelf. So was this just a necessity for them? Maybe. It could have been. You could argue that as a team that is now 4 games under 500 and with a +0, also just 0, run differential, they are not necessarily in a position to buy. They're also 6 games out of the next wild card spot, and the team they just traded with currently has the 3rd wild card spot in the Royals. I think if anything, they're just fortifying their team, and this group is hopeful that once the injury bug passes, this is going to be a team that can compete in October. And we know how it goes. Same thing happened last year. Kind of. All you have to do is get there, right? This team was at the top of the division for most of the year, but they still went as a wild card, won every single game on the road, and proved that they were as formidable as the Titan Houston Astros that they took down in the American League Championship Series. So all you have to do is get there. And I'm getting the sense that the Rangers think they can get there, but some things very much have to go their way for that to be the case. Now, let's talk through this idea of being a buyer or being a seller. Why would the Rangers be buyers? Well, they're the reigning World Series champions. Are you telling me that the reigning World Series champs are not going to buy at the trade deadline? If anything, that would just further piss off your fan base, if you ask me. So that feels like obvious thing number one. Number two, that would be in support of them buying. The division right now is still very much up for grabs. The Houston Astros at 55-50 and the Seattle Mariners at 56-51 are essentially tied for the division lead. Seattle, technically speaking, is in the wild card slot because of percentage points, but there's them, and then there's the Rangers at 4.5 back of both the Mariners and the Astros at 51-55. Granted, I felt a lot better about the Rangers' chances of sneaking back into the division race until they got swept by the Blue Jays in Toronto, but these things happen. And I don't mean it as like these things happen, that's just how this works. It makes it feel more daunting, the task ahead, than it actually is when your team can't win games against teams that are very clearly selling off pieces. And the Blue Jays have sold off a chunk of their inventory already. So whatever the hell motivated them to take 3 games from the Rangers, maybe it was, more Jose Bautista-fueled type of fire or revenge or whatever, what have you. It just... It dampens the mood of going into the trade deadline when you lose 3 straight going into the final 2 days before the deadline. Outside of that, they still played very, very well in the month of July. So well that they're back in this conversation as it is. The problem is that the Astros played significantly better. That turnaround that they've had after their miserable start to the season, it's put them where they are now. And they're not world beaters by any means, but they're starting to look like the Astros again, and that really concerns me. I wonder if the Astros are just going to put the chokehold on again and just play like Houston. I feel like the most significant thing that they've done this season was they subtracted Jose Abreu from the equation entirely, and they've gotten a contribution from a young man by the name of Joey Loperfido, who's filled in nicely for them at first base and has actually contributed to them for more so on a daily basis. And, with that trio of Altuve, Alvarez, and Bregman, they feel like they can still beat anybody if given the opportunity. So it's going to be a very, very long feeling stretch to hope that the Rangers are going to accomplish what they're hoping to accomplish. Now, it's funny, when I was making the show sheet last night as I was preparing to record this, I made a note to myself, could the Rangers buy and sell? And not only did they buy last night, they sold this morning. So technically the answer is yes. How much further in each direction are they going to go, though? Let's start on the sell side. So a couple of articles that I've seen from Ken Rosenthal, who's at The Athletic, just from the past week. So maybe it's outdated information that I'm bringing up. Maybe it isn't. A name that's getting thrown around a lot, and this was before Michael Lorenzen got traded, mind you, or a name that Ken Rosenthal was hearing was getting thrown out there or getting asked about, was Nathan Eovaldi. Now, The easy solution would have just been to move on from Michael Lorenzen and trade him to a contender, and that's what they did. They traded Michael Lorenzen to the Royals. Does it make sense now to then move on from Nathan Eovaldi? I think that there will be a team that will pay a premium in order to get him, but with the acquisition of Eovaldi comes the downside of, what is left for Eovaldi. Not in terms of his skill. We are very aware of his skill set. I mean more so just what's left on his contract. So I'm looking at it now. He has a vesting option for next year at $20 million. And the vesting option contains a $2 million buyout. And it vests when Eovaldi gets to 300 innings pitched over the first 2 seasons of his contract. But it looks like that option has already vested. So whatever team is getting him is going to get him for another season beyond this one. So if you trade him, this feels like the signal of, yeah, we're done. Because this has been your staff ace for most of the year in Eovaldi. I don't necessarily see the value if they're going to trade Michael Lorenzen to then also trade Nathan Eovaldi. Because, the extra year of control is so valuable. Even at his age, he's still pitching very, very well. But Ken Rosenthal is predicting, again, I emphasize this was before the Lorenzen deal went down. Ken Rosenthal is thinking that Eovaldi might get traded. And 3 teams that were former employers of Eovaldi have been linked. The Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Dodgers. Which is kind of funny that these teams are now looking for his services again. Granted, the most success came when he was with the Red Sox, when he had that notable postseason run for them in 2018 that led them to the World Series and that led to his new contract. I don't know that it's going to result in him getting moved at all, especially now that they've traded Lorenzen, but we'll see how it goes. Ken Rosenthal made another note in a separate article that the Rangers, according to a source briefed on their thinking, would be less inclined to deal Eovaldi and Andrew Heaney. So it sounds like 2 guys that wouldn't get moved would be those 2. But at the same time, Rosenthal is wondering if he still could get dealt. And who knows, maybe some team offers a king ransom to get Nathan Eovaldi. I don't know that I would support that said ransom, though. Now, that was the sell aspect of this. What about the buy aspect of this? This is a Buster-only tweet from a couple of days ago, so it's slightly dated, but there is still information that could be considered in here. Buster said, count the Rangers among the teams that have had discussions with the Rays about All-Star Isaac Paredes, who's already been traded to the Cubs, as well as Yandy Diaz. Texas is looking for an upgrade to its offense in a year in which Josh Young and Evan Carter has been out for months. Yandy Diaz, who was an all-star last year and is still hitting at a very amenable level, he seems like a very much upgradable option. I have a fear that he would cost a major league level talent like, say, Josh Smith. Or if the Rays are that desperate and they want to try and get Nathaniel Lowe back, then you could keep the left-hander in Smith. You add the right-hander in Diaz. You keep him at first base where he's played for most of the year, and then go from there. Now, I wonder if that's even a move that they would consider after Paredes got traded. And Paredes got traded for a couple of minor leaguers and 1 major league level talent in Christopher Morel. So that seemed like a hefty buy for the Cubs to make when they got him. It feels like another hefty buy would come as a result of trying to acquire Yandy Diaz, who was an all-star last season, as I mentioned, and has continued to thrive in his role with Tampa ever since leaving Cleveland all those years ago. But it is interesting because Jeff Wilson with Rangers Today has suggested that first baseman Nathaniel Lowe's, quote, name has surfaced, quote, as a potential trade chip for the Rangers this summer. He's had a good July. Now, it would be interesting if he would be the swap for Diaz, who's currently on the restricted list. But I wonder if that's the move that the Rangers would want to make. Would they want to subtract Nathaniel Lowe, who's been a key part of this team since they got him from Tampa Bay, and trade him out for a member of the Tampa Bay offense who's currently not available right now? He's currently on the restricted list due to personal matter. But it depends on your feelings of it. Because if you consider the left-handers in the lineup right now, you've got Corey Seager. Josh Smith is very much a part of this lineup. Evan Carter, when he's healthy, hits left-handed. Leody Taveras is a switch hitter. Jonah Heim is a switch hitter. So you have a ton of hitting flexibility in your order that would allow you to, say, if you wanted to subtract a left-hander for a right-handed bat, you could do that. I just wonder if that's the move that they want to make. I'm curious what you people think. Who would you rather have as the Rangers' first baseman the rest of this season? Would you rather have Nathaniel Lowe, or would you rather have Yandy Diaz? If you're listening this far in, just type in the comments or send me a message on Twitter, Instagram, email me, however you want to reach out. That's up to you. I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Would you rather have Nathaniel Lowe the rest of the season, or would you rather have Yandy Diaz? And that's kind of it as far as the recent rumblings. As I said, the trade deadline is going to be 5 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. So if you're listening to this and this is all the Rangers have done and you're not happy about that, I'm sorry. I don't control the trade deadline. But there is possibility that there is still something to be done if you're Texas. All right, transitioning to teams within the division, because as I mentioned, this division is very much up for grabs. And I don't think there's a team that sees that more than the Seattle Mariners, who made one of the biggest splashes so far of this deadline. Maybe the biggest, actually. Getting Randy Arozarena from the Rays and adding him to a lineup that, when Julio Rodriguez is healthy, with Cal Raleigh hitting baseballs out of the park the way he is right now. They've gotten a disappointing start to the year from Jorge Polanco, but since coming back from injury, he seems to have settled into his role. It's been a very odd year for the Mariners, given that they've won games, but they're not winning a ton of games convincingly. Their offense has been dreadful this year, but their starting pitching staff has been one of the best in baseball this year, led by Logan Gilbert and Luis Castillo. Like they've got the starting rotation figured out for sure, and the bullpen has been excellent as well. Everything leading down to Andres Munoz in the back end of their pen. The Astros, the A's, and the Angels have not really done much of anything yet. I would expect the Angels to do sell-off, the A's to do sell-off for not Geloff. Also quiet so far has been the Astros, who to this point have yet to make any significant additions or subtractions. I don't think they would be making any subtractions. I think they would add at this point. Doesn't seem like a team that would want to sell anyway. Very curious to see what they do, because in the long run, the Astros are the team that worries me the most, because the Mariners have kind of sputtered their way to this point. They started off really hot record-wise and have now played so below average that it has allowed the Astros to catch back up to them. So it's a division race that I'm watching for sure, and I'm curious to see how it plays out, and I'm curious to see how particularly the Astros handle the trade deadline, because they're a team that's getting mentioned in a lot of rumblings and rumors, but nothing has actually happened for them right now. All right, last thing I want to touch on this episode, and then I'm not even going to project the planning for this week because I don't know how it's going to go. I'm hoping to get back on my regular schedule, though, with distributing pods at least twice a week. So if you've been trying to watch a Rangers game this year and you are a subscriber of Comcast, first of all, I apologize that you've had to deal with this nonsense this whole year. The other news that has come out recently from reports from The Athletic and then as well from the Dallas Morning News is that Diamond Sports, which is the parent company for Bally's, which is the provider of the Rangers games, the broadcast entity. Diamond Sports could be soon getting the teams that have been blacked out from Comcast back on Comcast. From the story, it says Diamond Sports' regional sports networks have not been carried by Comcast since May because of dispute. Now, Diamond, which has been trying to emerge from bankruptcy since early last year, appears to have a deal with Comcast nearly complete. And then this is a quote from the lawyer of Diamond Sports Group. He says that we believe we've made substantial progress on resolving our issues with Comcast, and we have the intention of fully documenting and executing an agreement with Comcast to broadcast our regional sports networks in the very near term. That was Wednesday of last week in bankruptcy court. Comcast has not commented. And as a matter of fact, the Athletic article says declined to comment, which leads me to believe that Comcast is still pissed off in some way, shape, or form about this situation, which means the likelihood of baseball coming back on Comcast anytime soon is unlikely, the way I read it. But if they're at least talking, and if there's at least progress with this, then maybe it'll lead to something new, something better, something greater. But that's going to do it for this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. Stay locked in, and hopefully we'll have some more reaction after the trade deadline has passed, and we can react to new faces of the Rangers and react to how they do against the St. Louis Cardinals. That's a series that starts today, and hopefully the Rangers can find themselves back on track and get back in the groove of things. Also, shout out Wyatt Langford. I haven't done a Wyatt watch in forever, but dude, you were hot there for the month of July. Get back into shape and be good. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, believe in Texas Rangers.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.